Squish the kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Gary?
Dave not coming in yet?
No, he's gonna be on.
Dave's not here?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Approve the council agenda. Any agenda additions or corrections?
Mayor, Council, I don't have any additions or corrections for you tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocations from Riverside Church. Good evening.
I'm Pastor Arnold. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we just want to invite your presence here right now. And as the city council, Father, is meeting and the council member, Father, we just invoke your presence here right now, and we just ask for your guidance and for your wisdom. Just overshadow this room, Father, and fill all of our hearts with a sense of peace and your ordinance, Father. We just thank you. We commit this meeting into your hands. Guide us with your wisdom, Father, and the council members. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recognition of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything tonight? We have a couple resolutions underneath there. Resolution number 15095, resolution accepting $500 donation from James and Arlene Martini for Law Enforcement Memorial Park Fund. And B is resolution number 15099, resolution accepting donations from the Golden Eye Solution Incorporated for water treatment reverse osmosis equipment. And C is resolution number 15100, resolution accepting $2,552.50 cash donation from the Hutchinson Elks Lodge for landscaping pavers at VMF Park and bicycle fix-it stations at the Recreation Center.
Just had a question on the Golden Eye thing. What was that more about, Kent?
GoldenEye basically is a company, and you might recall their name. They actually have provided us our RO membranes last couple go-arounds over the years here, the replacements. They're actually going out of business, or they're retiring in essence, and they've administered a pilot skid on the RO system, reverse osmosis system up there, in conjunction with Dow, which is now Dow DuPont, or DuPont Dow, one way or the other. But anyways, but what's happening there is GoldenEye stepping away. Their smaller skid, the larger skid, we're having pilot skid, excuse me, we're having conversations with Dow DuPont with respect to where that's going to move forward and how that's going to move forward in the future. So in essence, GoldenEye is just going to give us some of the equipment that they are decommissioning.
Okay.
I would just note the first resolution, that $500 donation. You might have seen the article in the Daily with Joe Nagel. So.
The other one, I was going to ask Chad, I was going to ask you, the bicycle fix-it stations, there's one at the police memorial already?
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
And the other one, the new one will be at the rec center. What does that all, what's all there?
So I don't know what this one's gonna look like, but the one, I helped get the one down by the police memorial going, but we had Jake Powell make those. and they're like a work stand, so if somebody's on the trail and they get into trouble, they can hang their bike there, and then there's a bunch of tools hanging there that are somewhat theft, resistant, but, it hasn't been too bad. We've had to replace them a little bit, but people are pretty good about it, but people can hopefully get back on the road if they need to down there, so.
It's gonna have an air pump with it too. They added an air pump down
Down there,
by the
sure.
East Memorial as well, so.
Well, with all the bicycle traffic that we have in our city, that's a good thing.
Good thing. Sure.
I have a motion to accept those.
I'll make that a
Donation.
motion to accept all three.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Steve to accept all three resolutions, donations. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Citizens addressing the council. Just please come forward, state your name and address. That would be you, Mr. Paulson. We like pictures.
Thanks. Looks like you got a plan.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for taking the time to see us. I'm Bobby from 426 West 3rd Street in Winthrop. I am the current president of the Hutch Lions Club. I have with Lion Bill, I don't know his address, if you could say.
Lion Bill, Corporal Love. My address is 545 Graham Street Southwest in Hutchinson.
We're here today to talk about the Lions West Park. The playground equipment is getting up in age, so we are talking about helping replace it and do some of the things for it. We have been talking with Sarah Whitty about how to go about this. What we've done is gotten a quote from the company Play World Structures, or Midwest Playscape, sorry. The one that we're looking at that you guys have in front of you is called the Play World Structure. The list price on it is $14,500. If we order it before December 30th, we pay $7,160. It's half price pretty much, so we'll save $7,340 if we can get it ordered before the end of December. What the Lions have come up with is $9,000 so far. So what we're asking, the total cost of $17,100. We've got $9,000 down, so what we're asking is for help with the rest of it. Hopefully on like a 5-year payment plan, which would be $1,650 a year for 5 years. Is there any questions? I guess that's what we're looking for, is help to get this done before we lose out on the rebate.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Sarah called me on Friday, or Thursday or Friday, it was after the packet had been distributed, and so I said, we can't accept anything today, but we could at least have them come and kind of explain the project so you guys have an idea, and then what the plan would be is probably for our next meeting, there'd be some sort of a formal resolution similar. We've done stuff similar with Rotary Park, they paid an upfront amount, and I think they paid off the remaining amount of their donation over a 5-year period, so we've done something similar in the past, but just for, I guess, logistic purposes, that's how this would play out. But I know they wanted to come at least show this to the council and the public and get any feedback from you guys.
How old is the equipment that's there?
Very.
Very.
A little outdated too.
Right.
Yeah, the swing set itself isn't, and we would keep that there, but the rest of the equipment is very, very old.
Okay, so the swing set will stay.
It'll be moved, like repainted and moved, but the swing set itself will stay. That's why the picture that you have, there's no swing set. We just got
Right.
the rest of the stuff, kind of.
You're saying it's 7,000, you could get it for half price?
No, the total price is $14,500. And if we get it before the end of December, our cost is $7,160.
Yeah, right.
The total cost of the whole, putting it in, the stuff to go around it, the cement, everything is $17,100.
So I have a good friend that lives adjacent to this park, and my 5-year-old was over there with me. We were playing there, and 2 weeks ago, he said, "Dad, you gotta bring it up at city council." He's like, "You gotta," I'm neighbors with Dolph, so he knows Dolph, and he goes, "Dad, you gotta tell Dolph this park needs some help." So he's gonna be happy to, when I bring this home to report tonight, so, this is awesome, this will be great.
Cool, all right.
It's been brought
Well,
up
it's-
times.
It's a good project. I mean, it really is. And we've had a lot of the other clubs step up to the plate, and it's really a wonderful thing.
You may recall from the Parks Master Plan, this was something that was identified for some
Right.
improvements.
Lions,
so.
Lions Park.
It should be noted too that, you know, during the summertime, when the pool is open, that there's a lot of people that come down and do picnics on the concrete picnic table. But, you know, it's utilized more than just in your, you know, the vicinity there, or the, so I mean, it is, and that's hopefully another little project we'll do down the road, more tables.
That's great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And gals, sorry.
Any other want to address the council? All right, moving on. Approval of minutes, we have workshop of September 10th, 2019, and regular meeting minutes of September 10th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve both the workshop and the regular meeting.
Motion by Mary, second by Steve to approve those minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is the consent agenda. This will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. We have approval of improvement project change orders. Change order number 1 and 2, letting number 1, project number 19-01, Fifth Avenue South reconstruction. Change order number 2, letting number 2, project number 19-02, South Grade Road corridor improvements. 3 is change order number 2, letting number 5, project number 19-06, Technology Drive, West Highland Park Drive construction. B is approval of issuing parade permit to the Hutchinson High School on October 4th, 2019 for homecoming parade. C is approval of Spooky Sprint event on October 26th, 2019. D is approval of resolution number 15096, resolution returning donations to the Hutchinson Elks. E is approval of issuing short-term gambling license to the Minnesota Holstein Thespian Breeders Association on April 11th, 2020 at the McLeod County Fairgrounds. F is approval of resolution number 15098, resolution to sell at auction surplus property, 2013 Chevrolet Caprice. G is approval of Minnesota DNR Emerald Borer, Ash Borer Tree Planting Grant Opportunity. H is appointments to the Public Arts Commission, Jackie Fuchs to August of 2022, Patrick Hiltoner to August 2022, and Kay Voigt to August 2021, and that's a reappointment. And I is claims appropriation and contract payments, Register A. Is there anything that anybody wants pulled off?
G.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve the balance.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the balance. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. G, Steve?
I just had a couple of questions in the pre-application. In the narrative, it doesn't say how many trees are going to be planted. It does show this list that has 268. But again, in the narrative, it really didn't talk about that. Just wondering if it should. And then also in the template that's included, that talks about 200 being planted, so,
Right, the 200 number is basically the parks portion of it,
okay,
so which is the 75% roughly of the total.
okay,
In the database that you put this into,
yeah,
there's a number that indicates that. So what we're submitting only, the number's already known because of how you enter that in as a
Okay.
pre-app. And so what we did is provide the backup of the different species we would intend
yeah,
to make up that 268 trees, so,
okay.
yep.
So I saw that this would take place over a 3-year period?
It could.
Yeah.
There's, the grant period is 3 years.
Okay.
The work can be done over 2 seasons.
Do you see us still being able to do some of the other
Oh,
work?
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, this is just trying to leverage
Sure.
as much as we can out of the tree disease and infestation account, so.
Yeah. Does mention a local match, and right now it's kind of non-committed. but,
Right, right. So usually they have that conversation if they're gonna select you.
Okay,
Then we can have a conversation about match, and at that time, we would say, yeah, we could go up to, start working with them and come up with a number that's suitable for both parties.
so there'll be a final application
Correct,
that
yes.
comes back?
Yes, this is a pre-app, they select, you start, formulating the project, so they know what they're looking at relative to funding.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Mhm.
Good opportunity.
yes, definitely. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve the Minnesota DNR Emerald Ash Borer tree planting grant opportunity. Any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have claims appropriations and contract payments, Register B. I have a check on there for installing some windows at Creekside, so I'll be abstaining.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve Register B.
So that was a loader?
Yeah, they,
The
one of their
windows?
wheel loaders had, came in close contact with some trees. And luckily, the
Operator
guy
was
didn't get
okay?
hurt.
Yeah,
Because it was, I guess he had it up in the air and they rolled back and came down the loader, so. It was a mess.
lucky. That's good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We do not have a public hearing. Move to unfinished business, ordinance number 19-806, ordinance revising chapter 111, peddlers and solicitors. Mr. Sabora?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully third time's a charm on these ordinances. You might recall it's been tabled twice before, but we talked about changes both to the food vendor ordinance and the peddler and solicitors ordinance to give more flexibility to the city administrator and perhaps be more inclusive in some of the licenses that we are issuing in the city. Up first was this peddlers and solicitors ordinance. As you may recall from the end of the last meeting, there really weren't any changes proposed to this ordinance. The only change really is in connection with the food vendor ordinance, where at the direction of the council, we added a provision to add an exception section for events that are happening at various locations in town, that being the fairgrounds, event center, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, or the Hutchinson Mall. So really, that's all that's been added since the last time. It's just connection to the food ordinance. Nothing's changed with the peddlers and solicitors ordinance. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them on either one of the ordinances.
Well, since we're gonna talk about the food vendors ordinance, can we do that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Understanding is that the temporary and the yearly fee is the same, right?
No.
Aren't they both 125?
We have not,
Well, I know we've been discussing that, but if we lower that, if it costs, the chief is here, if it costs $125 for a yearly fee, and that's, we're not supposed to be, we're not making money on that, right?
Right, in an ideal world,
Correct.
we're not making any money on that.
Right. So if we lower the cost for the temporary fee, then we're losing money, right? I don't know.
I think it just depends how much, yeah.
You're talking about the investigation part of it,
Right,
correct,
that's what
Mary?
I'm talking about, the investigation part of it.
Is that a realistic cost?
well, I think the expectation was that a temporary permit would take less investigation than the annual permit. So I guess in that respect, that would make sense if it was less money. But if you're wanting the same investigation for a temporary versus an annual, then it should be, as far as we're concerned, the same cost. Same amount of time invested.
Okay, and we discussed the fact that if I'm having an event with the chamber, or it's in the park, or it's a city event, river song, whatever, they don't need a license, right?
Correct, at least based on what's proposed in this ordinance, combined with past practice of the council as far as those major events.
Okay, I understand that, but if I want that food truck in my backyard or on my street or in my driveway, they don't need a license either, right? And that's the same truck that's going to,
Depends on how it's being operated. If they're not selling to the public,
right,
then they don't need a license.
right.
Caterer's license from the
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, they would need a caterer's license from the state.
But all those trucks are licensed by the state. We require that, right?
State requires that.
The state requires it, but don't we require them even when they come before us to,
Yeah,
they have to show that they have that license,
They
right?
need to show us that they have their state license,
Alright.
correct? So-
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because there's a lot of pieces to this.
It is complicated.
And there's a lot in here, and I think, you know, there's just a lot to put together.
When as I shared, I think, I don't know if it was at the last meeting or at least in between meetings, our research shows that there's not a consistent method for the way every city does this. And that's really what's in front of you guys for consideration. Yes, there are some cities that require a city license. There are others that don't. We're one of them that currently require a city license. And the language that's within the ordinance is what's been requested from the 4 or 5 of you, from staff to be put in that language. And so that's, you know, part of this discussion, because if we're going to continue to move forward with requiring a license, this is what you guys have asked us. And if you've got concerns, then now's the time to change that language.
I'm just trying to make this, how do I want to say it? We should be welcoming these people to our city for the things. We want people to come to Hutchinson. We want those food vendors, whether that food vendor is in the park or he's somewhere else. You know, as long as they're following our set guidelines and have that Minnesota license. I'm thinking we should make it a little bit more friendly.
I think we are by reducing the price and by enabling Matt to have the ability to pass the license or approve the license much more promptly. This is no different than the transient merchant or peddler's license. That's what they were covered under previously, before we adopted the food truck and food vendor license. So, you know, it's just got some other nuances related to the food part of it that makes this different and why we have the two instead of just the one. So I think that plus the event sponsor, that's another addition that makes it easier events, and really came out of some of the requests from one business that wants to host things. So I think everything we've done does make it easier, makes it a little more welcoming, and tries to treat everybody pretty much the same. You know, if you're a food vendor or if you're doing a pop-up sale or something like that.
Well, the discussion's been good, you know, we just need to figure out like the one is at 125, and we can talk about lowering the other one and getting it to where it's,
Yeah, the current ordinance doesn't have any fees in it. That would be a separate item,
right.
But when
you know,
we talk,
assuming the ordinance gets adopted or changed.
but when we first talked about it, we were talking about $30, you know, so if it would happen 4 times, that'd be 120. That would pretty much match the annual license, so kind of meshes there. But, yeah, we'd still have to adopt that.
Matt, have you heard of cities having trouble with that, the ones that don't require licenses? Like, and I don't know if you talk to other administrators about that kind of stuff, but
I can't say without, I haven't spent a whole lot of time diving into it.
Right.
I haven't heard it.
but just through the grapevine, have you heard
I have not heard it.
issues?
But not that you've asked, or?
No, I haven't asked either, no.
I guess
Continue
when,
on.
once they come into town, they have to get a permit or a license, they gotta prove that they have a license from the state, correct?
Right,
That's
And-
one of the-
and insurance.
And insurance.
right.
Well, we've only
Yeah.
asked for them to provide us insurance if they're gonna be on a public. That's what's changed, that's one of the things we've talked about,
Yeah.
making it easier. That we've changed is that now we're only gonna ask for your insurance if it's on public property.
City property.
And that's what's somewhat different too, with the exceptions, if it's at the mall or a chamber event or at the fairgrounds, they're kind of assuming that responsibility, and they can invite who they want to be there, and if there's an issue, they can tell them to go home. You know, if somebody else comes in on public property, this is our vehicle to have some control over things. Understand, you know, their background a little bit more.
I guess I would just like to know maybe what some of those other cities that don't have that ordinance, how they're doing. Oh, can you,
That's something that we can call and ask, so.
just think we should, I mean, we want Hutchinson to be that friendly city. We don't want people to not come here. And maybe we should just check it out just a little more.
Well, I agree, we want people to come here, but we wanna still protect our citizens too,
Right,
you know, so
and I
you have to
understand
have
that.
something in place so you can do that, so, you know.
And some of the larger communities in the area, St. Cloud, Mankato, they have a licensing program. You know, Albert Lee, kind of when that came up before with North Star, I couldn't, off the top of my head, think of other ones that did require a license, but not everybody does, as it's been said, but at the same time, it's not unusual either.
I guess what direction you want Matt to go to, or what do you want him to research, I guess, would be probably the thing to.
Well, and you've got,
Yeah,
and
you got-
we have to remember there's two ordinances in front of you tonight too. I mean, I'm not hearing anything on the peddlers, solicitors one. So just to keep that in mind with the discussion, you've got actually two ordinances
Right.
for consideration of a first reading, so.
And I'm fine with the peddlers, solicitors. To me, that's different.
Why is that different? You're having somebody come in temporarily. I guess that's what I don't understand, the difference.
Well, I guess when I look at peddlers, solicitors, I'm thinking of people knocking on my door, selling products, or, to me, that's a little different. They're not necessarily around that much. When I look at the food trucks that we see around here, we all kind of know them already, and I'm not saying that we would know everybody coming from outside either, but I want to know what the cities that don't have an ordinance like that, how they are functioning, how they are working, if they've had any issues with any of those trucks or the people selling those products. That's just how I feel about this. But if you want to do the solicitor one, I mean, if that's what I'm not griping about the solicitors. I'm more concerned about our food vendors.
I think they are tied together. I mean, peddler, transient merchant, like I said, they could be having a show at the depot, or they could have it at another park. We definitely have seen at the depot. We've seen stuff at the rec center, some tool shows. So they all require that permit. So if we're not going to do the one tonight, I'd rather not do either one of them. So I think they are tied together, my personal feeling.
Want to table both of them?
Got a motion?
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to table both ordinances. Any other discussion? I guess, maybe we should give Matt some direction, Mark some direction, maybe, what
I mean, from what I got from the discussion, I can round up what those cities that aren't requiring a license, and get a report from, some feedback from them on are they requiring anything? Do they have anything in their ordinance that, still protects potentially some of the businesses? One of the things you could do, just as you think about this, we could put some provisions in, if you decide to go away from an ordinance, or from a permit requirement, you could put potentially some other restrictions in the ordinance to still protect some businesses. But I can also, like I said, I'll contact those that don't.
Maybe contact some that do and ask why they feel it's important, if
Sure.
they've heard from others.
Thank you.
you comfortable with that, Mark?
Yeah.
Well, they say the fourth time's a charm, so.
Okay, here you go. Call a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
New business, resolution number 15092, resolution setting Hutchinson Housing and Redevelopment Authority 2020 preliminary tax levy.
Hey, good evening, Mayor, Council. So tonight we have a series of tax levies we need to basically approve and certify to the county by the end of September.
coming up.
So the first one, well, first of all, a couple reminders. With the preliminary levies, as I said, they do have to be set to the county by the end of the month, but with the final levies that we set in December, those levies cannot be increased from the preliminary levies we set tonight, but they can be decreased. Then when we talk about the EDA and the HRA levies, or levy limits, the state does impose limits on those two entities, and those limits are based on market value, the city's market value, a percentage of that market value. And our market value for next year's levies is just a little over $1 billion. So starting with the HRA levy, the state levy limit is $192,993, and that's what the HRA board is requesting for their 2020 budget. That's a 3.7% increase over the 2019 tax levy, or just under $7,000 increase. And just to give you some perspective, the HRA's wages and benefits alone are expected to increase a little over $8,000 next year. So this levy increase doesn't even cover those wages and benefits. So tonight I'm asking that you approve resolution number 15092, setting the HRA preliminary tax levy for 2020 at $192,993.
Got a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve the HRA levy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 15093, resolution setting the Hutchinson Economic Development Authority 2020 preliminary tax levy.
So for the EDA, the state levy limit for next year is $189,133, and that's what the EDA board is requesting for its 2020 budget. Similar to the HRA, this is a 3.7% increase from the 2019 tax levy, and that amounts to a little over $6,800 increase. And that tax levy increase will basically fund increasing costs within the EDA's operating budget. So tonight I'm asking that you approve resolution number 15093, setting the EDA preliminary 2020 tax levy in the amount of $189,133.
Did you say up in front that, just reminding everyone that the preliminary levies are a maximum, that they could be reduced? In these cases, it probably won't happen, but.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, both of their operations can use these monies.
Yeah, right, yeah.
3.7% increase sounds like a lot, but when you look at it, $6,000-$7,000 increase doesn't go a whole lot with.
But I mean, even all of these, so when it gets to the general fund, obviously that's more.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the EDA tax levy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 15094, resolution approving the general fund and debit service fund preliminary 2020 tax levies.
All right, we have a summary budget in front of you. It's changed just slightly from the workshop 2 weeks ago. We did pull out $17,000 for that floor scrubber and transfer that over to a capital projects fund. So a slight decrease, but our budget is balanced for 2020. The two areas highlighted in yellow for revenues and expenses, both at a little over $13.6 million. That represents a 3.7% increase on the expenditures, which is driven mainly by the wages and benefits category, which is increasing at a rate of 3.9% for the year. And then down below, I've identified increases within the expense categories and within the revenues categories. You can see wages and benefits increasing $342,000. That's the biggest driver. Services and charges going up $85,000. largely related to the IT security training and software costs that we're seeing over there. And then the tax abatement, $45,000, that's for the Uponor business subsidy that we extended. This is the first year, 2020, of actually paying out that tax abatement. And it's a 15-year term, which will end in 2033 with a maximum abatement of just over $900,000. So this is going to be the first year of many with this tax abatement in our budget, and that abatement should grow as the value there at Uponor grows as well. So this is probably going to be the lightest we see it, and it'll just grow in the future. So we're at a total increase in expenses of just over $489,000. Then we have some increased revenue items. LGA increased $168,000. That's all been plugged into the general fund at this point. And then the Hutch Utilities pilot payment has increased $192,000. And just a reminder, we're in the final year of that 3-year phased-in increase in that pilot from 2.75% of their operating revenues to 4.5% of their revenues. And then on the HSA funding, as you recall, we've been funding the HSA contributions for the employees with our self-insurance fund dollars, and those dollars will be drying up in 4 to 5 years. So last year we decided we would phase that funding out over a 5-year period. So we're into year 2 of that phase out, which is reducing our transfer in from the self-insurance fund by $23,000. Then we have some other revenue items decreasing about $76,000, specifically the water park revenues, which we've tempered once again, and then the building permits we've tempered a little bit as well. So increases in revenues, a little over $261,000, giving us a shortfall of almost $228,000, which is what we factored in for a tax levy at this point to balance the budget, and that equates to a 4.5% levy increase. Any questions on this summary budget? So the preliminary levies for 2020 with the general fund, tax abatement fund, the debt service funds, the total city levy is at $7,537,908. That's for the preliminary levy, which is a 3.1% increase. Then we have our EDA and HRA levies that we talked about earlier, giving us a total tax impact for 2020 of $7,920,034, which gives us an overall tax increase of 3.1%. Then we always like to see how that tax levy impacts our residents. So this is a spreadsheet you guys have seen before. On the left, we have our adopted 2019 data, where we had a 4% general fund increase, tax rate of just a little over 67%, and then the median home value had an estimated tax payment of $920 for city taxes only. So we have 4 options going across the right. The first option is a 0% tax levy increase. And then option 4, which we're talking tonight about, is the 4.5% increase. So the one thing I didn't note, the tax capacity, we did get a number back from the county after the workshop, and it was actually less of an increase than we had anticipated. I was anticipating a 4% increase, which was kind of in line with our residential home value increases, but it actually came in at a 3.1% increase. So as we look at option 4, what we're considering tonight, that 3.1% tax capacity increase basically offsets our tax levy increase, leaving our tax rate flat. So really no impact on our tax rate. Obviously, if we levied less taxes, we would see a lower tax rate. In fact, if we levied zero increase, we would see about a 2% drop in our tax rate. But we're focusing on option 4, so a flat tax rate, and then as we apply that to the median home value, which we've estimated to increase about 4.1% up to $166,500, that homeowner would see an increase of about 5.1% or $47. Now it's important to point out under option 1, if we had no levy increases, just based on value increase alone, this homeowner would see about a 2% increase. So when we look at that 5% increase under option 4, really 2% of that is based on value alone, and the 3.1% is based on our tax levy.
It's important to keep in mind too that not every home is obviously the same. So, we try to do our best to give us a snapshot. You might have home values that go up more than that for certain properties, and some that may be less than that. But that's I guess the best picture in time that we can give at this point, so.
So this is a graph we've shown you many times. It's our debt management plan. The red line is our target debt levy. It's been stabilized for several years and isn't scheduled to increase until the year 2023. Then we have some moderate increases until we hit our new debt target out in the year 2032 of 2.6 million. So we've looked at the graph, but I wanted to put it in a slightly different format for you just to see the impact. In the early years at the 2.2 million target that we're currently at, you can see in 2023, we're going to need a slight increase of about 1.7%, which equates to about 37,400. And then over the course of 10 years, we're going to have similar increases until we hit that $2.6 million future debt levy target. But the one thing I just wanted to put in context here for you, a 1.7% increase on the debt plan translates to about a 0.5% increase on the city tax levy overall. So we're not talking about a very material increase. So I know Steve, you had talked about maybe increasing that earlier, but with the relatively minor levy change, I don't know if that's really even necessary. So then on the bottom, I just have a few factors that we always need to be aware of with our debt management plan that could affect future debt levies. Obviously, construction costs as those increase due to inflation, or if we decide to increase our improvement scope, that could drive up future levies. Interest rates are a factor. Right now, we've been in a decreasing rate environment, so that's been beneficial, resulting in less debt service. But as those rates creep up again, we just have to be mindful that that does affect and increase future debt and possibly future debt levies as well. And then if we look at new debt for the police station and heavy equipment scenarios, those two definitely would have impacts to future debt levies. So tonight, in front of you is Resolution 15094, setting the preliminary tax levy for the city at $7,537,908, and that's broken up within the general fund as shown within the resolution. Almost $5.3 million for the general fund, $45,000 for that tax abatement, and then $2.2 million for the debt levy.
Once again, that's a 3.1% preliminary tax levy increase.
I would make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it. Motion by Chad, second by myself, to approve the tax levy for 2020. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 15097, resolution calling for a public hearing on a proposal for the issuance of senior housing facility revenue obligation to finance a senior housing project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Prince of Peace has approached us looking for the city to help them finance a $3.5 million expansion project of its senior housing facility. And tax-exempt financing provides the lowest interest rates for this project. But unfortunately, nonprofits like Prince of Peace, they can't issue tax-exempt debt directly. So they rely on cities to be the conduit to issue that debt. And just wanted to point out that conduit debt does not obligate the city in any manner. There will be a loan agreement drafted up that basically states the Prince of Peace is solely responsible for all the debt service payments on the bonds, and then all the debt covenants and reporting requirements would have to be met as well. And then also ensuring that, like what the city does, we have to ensure this too with all our tax exempt projects, but to ensure that the project remains tax exempt over the life of the debt. So tonight, a couple items we need to decide on. First of all is whether city council thinks this project is appropriate for the city. Is this a project that you believe will benefit the city? And if so, then we'll also have to talk about an administrative fee to recoup costs that the city's going to incur in this transaction. This is a one-time fee. It covers our legal costs, our financial advisory costs, and then also staff time. We've had one other conduit financing that I can recall, and that was, I think it equated to about a $12,000 fee based on 0.5% of the par value of the bonds. That amount is more than adequate to cover our costs here with this deal. But we can also, I'm proposing a flat fee of $12,000, but we can also look at a percentage of the par value if that's what council would rather do. So tonight we need to not only decide on the project, decide on the administrative fee, and then if council feels it's worth pursuing, we would approve this resolution calling for the public hearing. That wouldn't obligate us in any way. Obviously, we'd have to hold that public hearing before we would finalize a project and execute an agreement with Prince of Peace. So with that said, I can open it up for questions either of me or there's some representatives, one from Prince of Peace, Marlene Deering is here, and then Ben Beckman from Citizens Bank is also here if you have any questions.
Andy, the other one the city participated in recent history was?
The Oaks and Pines, that was Ecumen, and we were mainly a participant in that deal. I think Lake Crystal was the issuer of those bonds. And since there were facilities in several cities, all the cities had to cooperate in the deal, is the way I understood it. But Lake Crystal was the city who actually issued those bonds.
Would you like to come up and address the council? Have some? Please introduce yourself.
Marlene Durin, Executive Director at Prince of Peace Retirement Living, legally Prince of Peace Senior Apartments, Hutchinson here.
Open to get going this fall yet?
We are. That's actually the plan. I know when you were talking about this, the city of Hutchinson was the conduit financing for Prince of Peace when they originally started 25 years ago. And so when we looked at doing the expansion, obviously we're coming back to the city of Hutchinson. We're looking at closing and breaking ground about November 1st.
Great.
Yeah. The project itself is to add 11 new apartments and then some commons areas and more garages. That's what we've seen the need over the years.
And are you also doing some updates to the other?
We are to the existing, to where it comes together, and the common areas when you come in. I guess really important for me is that when it is done, it looks very like it's been always the project, or that the building is very
Seamless.
Thank you. Cohesive was the word, no, I don't know, that seamless is a better word for the exterior, so, yeah, that's been real important to us, to
Well, I
make
think
sure.
there's a demand for it, you
Yeah,
know.
well, and to Prince of Peace's credit, we have had a very good success rate as far as occupancy, with the national averages being about 85%, we're running at about 97%. And we have a waiting list that will actually, if everyone on that waiting list moved in, it would be full within that 9 months after opening, so.
It's nice to have it downtown, too.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah, I have a lot of residents who are still walking to the downtown area and are
Well,
using that park across the
And
street.
the church is right across the street. So
Absolutely,
it makes
yeah.
it very convenient with a beautiful park.
The only thing we're not even considering is changing what our mission is. We will still remain independent living. There's a lot of the assisted living in town, and what we do very well, and there is that need for that independent living.
Right, because will you have garages in this next edition?
Yes, we will, yeah.
All right.
Yes, we will.
So-
And actually, more probably than what they had originally intended for the project. But what happened is 2 generations ago, when they built it, there were still people who were coming in who had never driven in their life. And now I have couples coming in with both of them with cars, or people who are driving a lot longer. So garages was definitely a consideration.
Right, because there is a shortage of garages. They get on a waiting list to get
Correct.
one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I have more people that are current residents than I've ever had before who are still waiting for garages. Yeah, so the project itself, we actually did surveys with the people who were currently living there, with the people who were on the waiting list and family members to what do you want to see? And this is what they came up with. So, yeah.
Sandy, can you touch on, there is a minor impact to the city when it comes to our debt rate? Maybe you want to, or our debt capacity. I don't know if you want to just touch on that briefly as well.
Right, the really only impact is with our annual $10 million bank qualification. And this year, we'll be well under that with our other bonding project. The only thing we'll have to do from the city standpoint is include a footnote in our audit report each year that basically refers to this conduit financing being out there. I don't believe it counts against our debt levies, or our debt limits, I'm sorry.
And the fee is sufficient to cover everything, Andy, you think?
Right,
or-
this is relatively minor. When we set up a tax increment financing district, which Prince of Peace utilized a TIF district originally, those are running at about $8,500 for legal and Eller's fees. This is a lot less intensive than a TIF district, so I anticipate we'll be somewhere in that $7,000 to $8,000 range for costs, outside costs, and then it's just staff time being reimbursed on top of that. So $12,000 I'm comfortable with, but if council wants to go with a percentage and make it a policy for future, the only thing I guess I would caution there is, you know, if it's a future project, $10 million, or, you know, are we coming out with, you know, $75,000 in fees? We're more than covering our expenses and actually profiting. So I just want to make sure we're covering costs comfortably and not necessarily driving up financing unnecessarily.
Yes, when I look back at the Ecumen one, they were charging 0.5% at that time. And so 0.5% on this would be about 17,000. But then I looked, okay, what would inflation be at that 12,000? And that was like 15.2, you know, so I thought, you know, if 12,000 was then why not, you know, just have an inflationary, and that would be kind of in between the two, and that 15,000, yeah.
That Ecumen deal was a little unique, being Lake Crystal was the issuer. I don't believe, I wasn't here back in 2006, but I wouldn't think there would have been much costs that we would have incurred. I think we came in on the coattails of that deal and got 5% or 0.5%, and that money went into our coffers. I don't know how much we would have had in costs. So I guess whatever we decide tonight, I just want to make sure it's a reasonable fee that covers our costs and doesn't necessarily drive up financing unnecessarily.
Lanny, you feel the 12 grand is enough to cover our costs, correct?
Yeah,
If you feel comfortable
So
with it,
I would prefer to do that,
yeah. I would too.
if that is fair in your eyes. I think that'd be the best way to go.
I agree.
I agree also.
What else do you need from us, Andy?
You just got the resolution in front of you for consideration that we'll call the public hearing. Once again, this doesn't commit anything to us
No.
at this point.
Can I mention something as far as the fee? You know, just an example of our projects. We tack on a percentage to our public infrastructure projects. So, more than this, too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and you're correct there, Steve, but each year we actually reduce that fee to meet our budgeted revenue, because if we did the 15-21% on every project, we'd be pulling in $200,000-300,000 more than we really need to meet our
Yeah.
general fund budget, so there's wiggle room there too.
Yep, I understand
Yeah.
that, and that's taxpayers paying that.
Yeah. There's, I don't know if Ben, if you wanted to speak to it, but city normally backs their obligations with their taxing authority. So we can always tax to meet our obligations, but this one's a little unique because I believe Citizens Bank is issuing a mortgage. Is that right, Ben, to guarantee the debt?
That is correct.
Could you introduce yourself,
Oh,
please?
Ben Beckman, Citizens Bank and Trust.
Thank you.
So, thank you for having me tonight. The way this functions is just like a loan. We file a mortgage on the property, payments come in like a typical loan does, whether it's a mortgage on a house or car loan. Everything functions the same, but we do need the city's assistance to provide this at a tax exempt interest rate to make it feasible.
You have a motion for the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve resolution number 15097. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Setting truth and taxation hearing for December 5th, 2019 at 6 PM.
Mayor and council, part of the requirement with approving the preliminary tax levies is we also need to set the time where we're going to have our public hearing to discuss the proposed budget and tax levy impact. And so looking at that, we've usually done it the first Tuesday in December. However, this year the county is having theirs that first Tuesday. And I know we try to avoid both, the county and the school district, and talking with Darren, sounds like the school district is looking to have theirs on December 9th. So what I'm proposing is that we would do it on Thursday, December 5th.
I'll make a motion to approve December 5th at 6.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Steve to set the truth and taxation meeting for December 5th, 2019 at 6 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Governance, we have Hutchinson Public Library Board minutes from January, July 22nd, 2019. City of Hutchinson Financial and Investment Reports for August 2019. Hutchinson Housing Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from August 20th, 2019. Tall Grass Noxious Weed Monthly Report for September 2019. Chief Gipperson, you have anything else for us tonight?
No, sir.
Kent?
Couple of things. South Grade Road project out there is going very well, even with the bit of rain we've had the last few weeks. So just want to commend our local contractor, R&R Excavating, putting the resources and effort to it that they have here on the front end. So our completion date is Friday, November 1st. So at this point, we don't see any issue with that as long as we get the signal mast arms and poles that we ordered 5 months ago now. So, and obviously they're being fabricated just down the road from us, but,
I was gonna say the shipping.
yeah, we're in the queue. They pushed it out a week already on us, a month or so ago, but, we're hoping that those arrive on or shortly thereafter, October 11th. So, yeah, that's what we're being told at this point. Otherwise, going well out there. They just, I got the second of the 3 lifts of bituminous down today on the east end, so taking shape. Residential leaf vacuuming, believe it or not, we've set the start date on that, and we're getting the word out on that front. Begins Tuesday, October 15th, so the day following your garbage service. As usual, please don't rake leaves into the street prior to then. There will be some vacuuming activity going on, but it'll be more the street sweeper out and about, clearing leaves and trying to keep the gutter line open up to mid-October until we get into the full leaf vacuuming service. Then lastly, I handed out this handout, 2 pages in front of you from the Glencoe Transportation Study, just more as a FYI, they had a public meeting last night. They actually had, probably, I would say 60, 70 people in the room, so they had pretty good turnout. They had a short presentation. This was the only material provided, albeit there were some boards and some slides I took photos of that had a little bit more in-depth information than what's shown on this handout, but the focus of the study, like what's shown here, was Highway 212 improvements and the potential reroute of Highway 22 through and/or around the city of Glencoe. The 212 portion of it, they've arrived at some potential safety improvements at Chandler. And 212, Chandler is the roadway on the west edge of town. I think of it as the Dairy Queen Road, I guess, just to the north there of 212. Morningside Drive's the four-way, obviously the Coburn's roadway. And then you get going to the east out of town, Falcon Avenue, County Road 69, a couple intersections prior to you getting way out east to County Road 1. And they've identified, like what's shown on the handout here, potential roundabout or J-turn at Chandler, Morningside, and this has been talked about for some time now, but the potential of constructing a roundabout at that intersection instead of the four-way stop condition that currently exists. And then, Falcon Avenue you would leave as is. I think there's not too much traffic on that roadway, so they're not overly concerned with the variety of turning movements. County Road 69, they're talking about closing the median, so that would basically be right in, right out scenarios. And then County Road 1 out there on the east edge, that is already in MnDOT's program for a J-turn in 2022. And that, a J-turn, that's what exists through Cologne. You're gonna see one here next year. It's either next year or 2022 also at the Bongards intersection on 212 also. One's being currently designed. Then the bottom portion of that side of the handout is the Highway 22 alternatives. They started with 10 of them. They've narrowed it down to the 4 shown on the handout. And yeah, at this point, talking to MnDOT staff at the meeting, and this is where our input, or maybe we should communicate in some manner on this front, but to encourage the further development of these alternatives and this project as a whole. Basically, this study, all it's going to arrive at, and it's a good thing, it's going to arrive at recommending that these 4 alternatives be pursued further, and the next step is the environmental study process, which is a big step because that would then analyze all 4 of these, environmental impacts, property owners, costs, wetlands, all sorts of things come into play. And then ultimately through that study process, that enviro study process, you would narrow it down to 1 alternative. And that would then be recommended. So as a result of this study, I think it's a little disappointing to some people, thought that this study might actually arrive at 1 alternative or 1 recommended corridor or alignment. That isn't going to be the case. So we need what MnDOT plans on doing is ultimately entering the environmental process with 4 alignments, these 4 alternatives, and then work through that process to hopefully narrow it down to 1, albeit they don't have any funding. They don't have any funding available at this time for that environmental work. And really what needs to be done, I believe from MnDOT's standpoint, is they need some initiation, some encouragement from the city of Glencoe. They're not asking the city of Glencoe for any formal action at this time, but after this study is finalized, they're hoping that there'll be some sort of initiation partnership, you know, pursued by the city of Glencoe to move into that environmental process.
Is number 7 the current alignment?
You can,
It looks like it's Chandler Avenue.
yeah, well, a portion of it is, Steve, once it comes out onto 212, that is, you see that just blurry cream colored line to the right of the 7 keynote? That's the current alignment. Yeah, it goes over and then down and then back.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think at this point, like I mentioned, I think it'd be in the city of Hutchinson's best interest to encourage the further development, timely development of this process. And I'll write something to that effect and, you know, bring it to council for your approval.
They looked at the volume of traffic that comes north, you know, from south of Glencoe on 22 versus the volume of traffic that's going north of 22 or coming from north? I mean, what's the predominant traffic?
Yeah, no, there's a fairly significant differential there, by all means, Steve, yeah. And they realize that. I've seen the numbers before over the years, but yeah.
Coming from Gaylord.
Yeah, they realize that. You know, when the study was done years ago, and it's alluded to, it was on one of the slides I took a photo of, but, you know, that far west corridor, you know, landing, you know, tying 22 in west of the city of Glencoe was evolving at that point, is my understanding, as the preferred alternative. Ultimately, there wasn't a decision made between the city of Glencoe and MnDOT at that time, but yeah,
Looks like more of it would be one of these eastern, would serve that traffic more, or?
yes.
Yeah, the higher traffic.
Yeah, but, yeah, you run into some dynamics there with more corners, obviously, and turning movements and turnbacks of county, upgrades, turnbacks of county roads, so. But that westerly one would definitely be more costly because it's for the most part, a completely new alignment, and you have to get over the tracks too. So you're gonna need a bridge over the tracks, and a fairly significant one at that, due to the lay of the land out there.
All right,
That's it.
thanks, Ken. Mr. Savora?
Nothing else tonight.
Well, it was Dave's turn, but Dave's not here, so. Steve?
Yeah, it's not here. Just one question on the trail by, you know, on South Grade. Anything new on the section by the apartments, South Grade apartments? You know, I just see the sidewalk is still there and trees
Yeah.
have been planted and,
I think, thanks for bringing that up, Steve. Yeah, I know you brought it. We looked at, after you brought it up last time, we had looked at it through the design process. We are maintaining how we're gonna tie that in and utilize that existing site. It's not gonna quite be 10 feet, but we're not narrowing it down to 5 or
okay.
6. But we're skewing it over. We're able to utilize the existing concrete that's there. I think that's in our best interest, because otherwise we're into acquiring private property rights and not knowing how we're gonna potentially reconfigure that Dale Street intersection when we touch Dale Street in the relatively near future. Now, I hate to, you know, go through a process to acquire private
there might be
property.
something at that time then.
Yeah, we'll clean it up then and reconfigure it in its entirety and make that a true trail connection at that time.
So we'll just add more concrete kind of in the median area, get it to the curb.
Yep,
type of
within
thing?
the,
Yeah, in
within the
right-
public right away. We really get pinched with how the intersection's configured against that southwesterly corner of that private property.
I was thinking, yeah, why not just purchase something then? But it makes sense what you're saying with the future project, so. Speaking of trails, you know, I brought this up in an email to Matt and Kent, but also brought it up at the bike and pedestrian. I think it would be helpful to look at adding a trail segment on Second Avenue Northwest where it comes, you come across the bridge and then get onto Second Avenue or Franklin and go around the corner towards Dairy Queen there. Right now, you come down, if you're going south, you come across the bridge and, you know, it's basically a right angle, or else you're going into the street to make that corner. And, you know, we have it signed as bike friendly, but it just seems like it would be a lot safer, because that is a high traffic area. And I had heard there might have been an accident there with a bicyclist a month ago or something like that on the road. And so why not, you know, make that a trail? It's all public property over to First Avenue anyway. And you know, there's talk of adding a trail, you know, along the medical center by the river, but that could be added later on to tie into that as well. But it just seems like that would be a safer addition, you know, to the whole system. So,
Yeah,
why wait to do the one?
yeah. I think you could maybe do something sidewalk wise potentially. I looked at it, you know, the sidewalk ends north of the chiropractor there on the east side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if we could wrap that. I don't know. There's not, if I remember correctly, on the westerly side of the road, the old medical clinic site, I don't think there's a whole lot of right of way there. Granted, we own it, the city in essence, yeah, I realize, owns it all, but actual platted street right of way. And that's why I always envisioned, you know, let's see what happens with potential redevelopment there, and then look. I think it makes sense, Steve. I agree with you, and especially if that what we're calling the levee walkway trail is built along the north edge of the medical clinic site. But I am a little hesitant to build a trail facility because I think to get it tied in all the way, and I'd have to look at this again, you know, we run into some tree impacts to bring it around the corner.
It's 2 ash trees.
Yeah, and they're probably ashes, yeah, so we might get into those, but here nor there, but yeah, I'm just a little hesitant with the potential redevelopment doing, but I think we could, from a sidewalk standpoint, and granted, there's that parking lot there behind the antique shop and such with some wide openings, but we could extend the sidewalk once we get north of the parking lot access point openings and possibly get it around the corner to the Gateway Park area, the alley there. That might be more of a short-term, more reasonable short-term fix.
So why don't you take a look at that?
Yeah.
Anything else, Steve?
2 things. Resident on Lewis asked if there could be a stop sign added at Lewis and Larson Street. You know, just gets to be kind of a busy road, fast traffic sometimes, and he was wondering, you know, how that discussion could be.
Yeah, I finally did have a chance to look at that, Steve. Yeah, apologize for not getting back right away, but took a look at it this afternoon, and I think this goes back a little bit to the premise, simple premise from a traffic engineering standpoint. You shouldn't be utilizing stop signs for speed control.
Yeah.
And I don't believe, you know, it's a 3-legged intersection. You know,
It's like Allen Street.
Yep, that's true, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes, there's that one too. But I don't, and I can defer to Chief Gifferson a bit on this, but you know, if you get into the habit of utilizing stop signs for speed control and not to manage traffic volumes and turning movements, I think it's a slippery slope that some would argue we have too many stop signs out there right now, and we should be doing some analysis to figure out which stop signs should go away, so. Yeah, I don't think from traffic volume or accident history, there's a need there. I'll leave it at that.
Do we have one of those speed trucks? I thought we had bought one. I don't know.
The McLeod County Peace Officers Association owned one at one time,
Yeah.
but it has kind of fallen in disrepair and is no longer functional. So,
Maybe a little more attention out there at times after school.
well, it's certainly possible. I would argue someone's perception of speeding and what actually speeding is two different things as well, so.
That's
I mean,
true.
I don't live on that street, so, but, and there's just been.
Just passing it on.
Yep, I understand.
Anything else? Last thing, we talked about the budget. So I talked about the library, Pioneer Land before. Have we got any information from them? And can we see a budget?
Yep, she's set to come and address the council in November, I think, maybe the first meeting in November, so
Perfect.
I'll make sure to remind her of doing that, so.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Chad?
Sure, a couple things.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. Let's get wild. So my family and I walked the Fifth Avenue section west that got done. It really turned out nice, so I just wanted to note that. Like, the sidewalks all turned out great and everything looks good, in my opinion. The mosquito spraying, I assume, is done for the year.
Mosquito spraying is done,
Sure.
correct?
'Cause it's definitely noticeable. Like,
Yeah.
But they're not done.
tough out there the last couple
I
days.
mean,
And
we made a fair investment there this year, like we
Sure.
talked before. I mean, definitely, we could talk to Clark, but
It's supposed to
I
get
don't know.
cooler here. So.
Yeah, it's gonna get cold eventually.
last week was absolutely brutal out there.
Yeah, it's been abnormally warm lately, yeah.
So, with the Lions' generous donation at their park, I was wondering, does the rest of the council have any appetite for kicking a little more money to their project to just, like, maybe leverage their dollars to a little bigger playground project? You know, we've done that in the past, like with JC Park when all those hairball concerts were going down. I know that the city kicked in a little bit too, you know, and then we were able to get a much bigger project going. Not that what they picked out isn't great, it certainly is, but sounds like they're getting a little bit of a deal. If we can give them another $5,000 or something, maybe we could,
Into that?
yeah. And it's not a big park, you don't wanna have an overwhelming facility there, but, it might be a good opportunity to do it, you know.
Maybe Dolph and Sarah could look into something that.
We can, I can talk with Andy and Dolph and just let you know what funds are available or what we could take from, and then if there's a desire, when we look to formally accept a donation,
Yeah,
to add something to that.
yeah.
It would be nice to have, like a shelter of some kind or get out of the sun. They were gonna add some other picnic tables, that.
Sure. But it'd be a nice time to do it, as long as construction crews are out there.
If you get some bennies, from, if there's extra playground equipment to it. So.
And so on my bike ride with my son yesterday, I got a full report on not just Lions Park, but every park in town. So that we bike past, and so I'll present his report at the Parks Board. But they're very insightful, so, yep. And then just for everybody's knowledge, we welcomed little Charlie Shizmowski into our family last week, so. Little Charles is doing good, and Mom's doing good too, so if I look tired, that's because I am, so.
So you write down those reports from your kids, so
Yep.
when my kids give me, I'm supposed to write
Yeah,
those down?
if
Okay.
they're good. You know,
Okay.
Ben's was pretty solid. His main focus was you gotta have stuff for big kids and little kids, because he has a little brother now. So he didn't wanna leave Charlie out in the cold, so.
That's
So,
good.
Yep, but that's all I have, so.
Thanks, Chad. Mary?
Well, I was just going to congratulate Chad and Betsy
Thank you.
and Benny on that little brother Charlie.
Yeah.
So enjoy it. You know how fast they grow up.
They do.
Yes. You'll have 2 riding bikes pretty soon.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So will Benny pick out a car yet?
No, not yet.
Matt?
Just a couple things, if there's any interest in League of Minnesota Cities regional meetings, there's one coming up in Waite Park on October 16th, that's probably the closest. I know, October 8th, the House Capital Bonding.
Yep.
Group is visiting.
Yep.
Hutchinson with our Lakes River Basin request, and then we've, started kicking off the marketing branding initiative project, and just look for probably mid-November, some focus groups and meetings and open houses on that. So, that's it.
Thanks,
Yep.
Matt.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Matt. I know Councilmember Cook mentioned being there at that bonding request tour, and I think what we'll do is we'll actually more than like go over to the Roberts Park parking lot and look out that way off the landing there. And
Go
you can kind
across
of,
Go across School Road Bridge too. That way you get a really
Yeah,
nice
that's true.
elevated view.
yeah, we want to get them out on the basin there somewhere. So yeah, no.
This would be good. You could see that delta a little bit.
I'm sure they'll probably take School Road Bridge on the way out of town. They'll be coming from the cities, and more than likely we'll meet them here and then take them, have them follow us somewhere. Yeah, over there. So, yeah, and John's been working on putting together some material on that front, and I think we have 20 minutes, half hour. Yeah, I don't even think it's a half hour. I forget what the exact schedule is, but we are first on the list, so she told me they might get here a little early, so might have a little more time. That's it.
Thanks, Ken. I have for the Airport Commission, Cheryl Dooley's term is up, so I would like to reappoint her if that would be fine with everyone. And I had down Fifth Avenue, Chad, you mentioned it. I've had numerous people come up and tell me that it turned out very well. So that's kind of exciting to hear something positive for a while. And the Southwest Pond, I mean, they thought that turned out very nice too with the landscaping, and I think once it gets done and functionable, I think it's gonna
No,
help
it's
out a
looking
lot
good down
into
there,
that
no doubt.
area.
And yeah, the grass and the vegetation, the plantings obviously will continue to fill in, so
Yeah.
should look even better next spring.
Yeah, and the only other thing I wanted to mention that our senior center is having a fundraiser on, it will be on the 5th of October. They're bringing in a guy from Atlanta, it's Legends of Laughter. The guy does, comedian and does imitations of a whole list of people, so. That's at the senior center, and it's actually matinee, so it's at 2 o'clock on the 5th of October. So just wanted to mention that, and otherwise, adjournment's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Chad, seconded by Mary to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.